Welcome back to Mutton Chop Gaming. I'm the Mutton Chop Gamer, and today we're going to be taking a look at Ducktales Remastered. Now, I was never the original audience for DuckTales. I was more of the cartoons and the early aughts Nicktoons. However, I still understand the general gist of DuckTales. I mean, I've seen an episode or two with my nieces, and I've seen the original movie. But none of that should matter so long as the game is good. So, with that said, let's take a look at Ducktales Remastered.
The narrative is fairly simple. The Beagle Boys break into Scrooge McDuck's office building, and Scrooge, rather than calling the police, decides to go after the criminals himself. After saving his nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, he beats up the head of the gang and lets him just walk out without being arrested. He discovers that the Beagle Boys were after a painting that had a code for treasures worth $1 million apiece. These objects are found everywhere, from the center of the earth to the moon! But it won't be easy, because he will be encountering his rivals all the way. It's pretty good, and it has a cartoonish charm to it that I feel would be viable for a children's cartoon. So yeah, the writing is pretty stellar. However, I feel that the characterization is a little weird, even if it does match the show.
Vampires, banshees, and mischievous spirits are just a lot of superstitious hocus-pocus.
Scrooge, you knowingly live in a world with a sorceress, who you also meet up with in this game. How do you not believe in superstitious things?
You're not like the boys, are you? You don't think I'm just a worthless tag-along, do you?
Yes, Webby, yes, I do. The story also wears on you after one playthrough. The charm of it all only keeps you enthralled for so long, you eventually just want to skip it. Thankfully, you can do that, but there's no option to just automatically skip the cutscenes when you're in a new game. You have to pause the game during a cutscene and skip it every time a cutscene begins. Yeah, I know it's a first world problem, but it's still tedious. Oh, and if a cutscene starts, everything in the game immediately stops. Even the invincibility coin you just got from the enemy you killed, which started that cutscene. Now, the aesthetics are one of the main selling points for the game here. WayForward wanted to take the time to make the game look and sound great for every nostalgic player of DuckTales. Even though I didn't grow up with the game, it still impresses me. The game consists of a large number of 2D sprites that all fit lovingly into the Disney style. It's like these are stills from the show, only more refined and the colors pop out more. It all works extremely well. However, in gameplay, they seem to be imperfect. Because the game is largely tile-based, it gets confusing when trying to go down stair-like paths, because Scrooge is bigger than the block width. This makes getting into smaller areas you think you should be able to get into impossible. Outside of the gameplay, these sprites are used in cutscenes. Now, I'm not expecting a level of lip syncing that matches the original show, but I was expecting maybe the mouth to flap. Also, emotion is expressed in the most basic ways. Yeah, I realize that makes me sound like David Cage, but Disney is known for beautiful animation. And to see these sprites styled in Disney fashion without the animation quality is just off-putting. There are also 3D elements, but they're barely there and they don't play a significant role. The voice acting is very high quality, getting most, if not all, of the original actors to reprise their roles once more. Even Alan Young, who was in his 90s when the game was in development. With such great talent, the game captures the same feel I'd imagine the show had. However, with such great talent also comes the want to use it as much as possible. You see, there are some bits of flavor dialogue that just gets old. Scrooge will say something like, "I've never seen a gem like this before," even after collecting several of that kind of gem in a level. Flavor dialogue can help add to a game, but limiting the dialogue down to only a few lines and making those lines repeated so many times actually ruins a game. The sound effects all work great though. They all have a cartoony feel to them that works wonderfully, and they fit the visuals nicely. Lastly, the music. It is all really good. It's remastered from an NES game, so that might be expected, but the remastering done is what really takes the cake. Jake Kaufman, otherwise known as Vert, is an amazing video game music composer, and the reworking of the tracks works well, with new bits thrown in to accompany the melody line, and it all works extremely perfectly. Heck, there's a new song in here too that feels as though it could have been in the original game. However, for sound overall, music, voice, and effects, I have one overarching complaint. Everything is too loud! I know I can just turn down the volume, but if I can play any other game on my Wii U at this volume and it's fine, why does this game need to be so loud? You know how in The Dark Knight Rises, Bane's voice boomed over every other sound in the movie, demanding your attention? Imagine that for everything. But now we move on to the gameplay.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, perhaps the pettiest complaint I've made about a video game.
The buttons on the controller work differently between the menus and the gameplay. You confirm things with one button, but that button is not the same as the jump button. Instead, the jump button sends you back from your menu. Look, industry, we just got rid of motion controls. So you need to realize that the player should move as little as possible. Even their thumbs shouldn't need to move if they don't have to. I'm not saying take away the gameplay. All I'm saying is that you don't need to use all of the buttons on a controller. This also leads me onto how the Wii U gamepad is used in the game. It's barely used, but it can be used as your map screen, which is useful because it's static, rather than dynamically changing based on which direction you're facing in the game. However, if you press the wrong button, even by accident, it immediately cuts the map from the screen, so to get it back, you have to pause, hit the map button, and then exit from the pause menu. Why not just make the map toggleable through the pause menu and not let us return on the flick of a switch? Or make it so we have to touch the gamepad screen to make it go back to the way it was before. But on to the actual game itself. It's a 2D platformer with a main mechanic involving Scrooge's cane. First, you can use it to hit things, breaking blocks, moving barrels, or shooting rocks into the air. Simple enough, but I swear, the physics of what you want to knock change sometimes. More notably, Scrooge can bounce around on his cane. This will break blocks, kill enemies, and help you avoid hazards. However, you can't immediately pull out your cane if you're hit in midair, and I swear, sometimes it feels like you can't avoid getting hit, even when you think you should be killing the enemy. Then there are enemies that won't get killed by your cane because the designers are jerks. The Himalayan level makes it so you can't bounce around with your cane on the snow, but there are places outside of that seem to punish you for bouncing around. The biggest mechanic of the game, and you're punished for using it too much. Imagine that you're playing Portal. If you can't figure out what you're supposed to do, you tend to lose control and just shoot portals everywhere. It doesn't hurt you, but this actually can help you. In other games where the mechanic is limited, like first-person shooters being limited by the bullet number, I understand. But you can bounce as many times as you want in this game. I just don't get why they want you to not use this mechanic. There is also a hard pogo option, but that only means that to bounce continually, you need to hold down and the action button instead of just the action button. It doesn't inhibit you in any way, it just does that. You could turn off hard pogo and you'd be just fine. There's no real reason to use it. Another big part of the game is collecting treasure. You walk over gems to collect them, but gems can randomly appear if you walk past empty space. This will result in the flow being interrupted because you have to turn around to grab a gem. And if the gem appeared and you can't get back to it, oh well. You shouldn't have tried to play the game like a normal person would play it their first time. You also can't collect gems in midair. They have to hit the ground before you can collect them, which is kind of arbitrary. The original game required you to get $10 million if you wanted the good ending. Here, though, you need to collect treasure in order to buy extras in the game. However, the stuff people actually want, the music, which includes 8-bit remixes by the way, is locked off until you buy stuff like concept art. Look, as a former major in an art department, let me tell you something, games industry. Gamers don't want to unlock concept art. We want something substantial, something to make the game more fun. And concept art is something that should be done for promotional stuff for a game. Or maybe putting it in the credit. Oh, you did put stuff that we had to buy to unlock in the credits anyway. Thanks a lot. Let's talk about the enemies for a bit. They're well varied, and they have different effects and abilities. This adds challenge and depth to the game by switching it up every level, so you have to figure out how to use your one weapon against them. Oh no, it's the Mighty Ducks cartoon! Run! However, they respawn way too much. I'm not expecting the game's enemies to stop after being killed, but I'm expecting them to not return until I'm at a screen transition. Yeah, if you're going to respawn everything anyway, why have the screen scroll between certain areas? This game isn't too demanding, you could have just had the whole level load all at once. Yes, it's true to the original game, but this is a remastering, meaning that tech things should be remastered as well. All but one of the levels follow a pattern. Collect X amount of objects, then get to the boss. There are also some secrets not on the map that can lead you to getting more money, getting healed, or even getting a permanent extra heart. Oh, and the bosses break the sacred rule of 3. You know the one, the rule where every boss is supposed to take only 3 hits if you can't see their health bar. Yeah, the game doesn't show you the boss's health, and bosses take at least 6 hits each. Now, you could argue that the Metroid bosses break this rule, but after the first 2 games, the bosses tend to have some subtle way to tell you their HP, like a change of color or the arena transforms. We don't get that here. We have no idea how many times we have to hit the boss for it to die. Oh, and the last climb of the entire game is rather difficult. It relies more on precise platforming than ever before, and you could expect to fail more than a few times on your first playthrough. Now, a quick word on difficulty settings. There should have been more. When they say easy mode, they mean easier than modern game design mode, meaning that you lose half a heart with every hit and you have infinite lives. There should be a mode in between normal and easy that has infinite lives, but you take the regular amount of damage. That's the game I want to play because it has the right level of difficulty. And don't talk to me saying that the lives add difficulty. Lives are artificial difficulty, making it so that if you screw up or try to experiment what the game puts in front of you, you get smacked upside the head. I mean, look at VVVVVV or Super Meat Boy. Both are incredibly difficult, but they offer infinite lives. So the challenge isn't about getting to the end of a game as much as the challenge is mastering a game.
You know what? Despite all the flaws, this game isn't too bad. I'm gonna give it a B. You'll enjoy it, but just don't expect to get more than one playthrough unless you're trying to complete the game. Alright, that's it. I'll see you all next week.
Hey, if you liked my video, then why not throw me a like, a comment, and subscribe to my channel. And while you're commenting, suggest a game for me to critique sometime later.